Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting for Bedford Township for the budget for May 28th, 5 o'clock. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
The flag
of the United States of America and to the
republic for which it stands,
one
one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with
with
liberty
liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we've gone through the budget, and this meeting right now, if we can wrap it up, will be kind of an opportunity for us to go through what we've done, kind of go over some of the things that we'd like to continue to cut. So first off, does anybody have any questions? I know there were some emails going back to Mr. Manning about some questions. Has everybody's questions been answered about the cash on hand and CDs, what's available, what's not available? He sent out kind of a description. So anybody have any questions on that portion? Okay.
Evidently not. So before we get started, I was asked by the Treasury Department to reduce the seasonal wages to zero. With Mr. Francis retiring and a new deputy coming in, we can save roughly $9,000 in medical insurance. And with the reduction of the seasonal wages, it's going to drop the FICA $300. So we're picking up roughly about $14,000 there. And also in the sewer area, we're not going to need the pull out for temporary help. So we picked up some savings in both general fund, excuse me, and in other funds. So.
Well, that might change a little bit because some of the discussion I want to get into it, since you've got right into it, you might need to keep that seasonal because I think we can cut out one employee in the Treasurer's Department. Personally, I think we could cut out one employee in the Assessor's Department and one employee in the Maintenance Department. So you might need to rethink your whole thought on seasonal. You might need to save a little bit for seasonal. Personally, I think those are some areas where we could cut because let's be honest, we need to cut big time if we're going to get anywhere near where we want to get with our budget. As far as getting up to that $800,000 mark. So, Mr. Francis.
Well, first off, I don't believe you've worked a day in the Treasurer's Department, so I don't think you know what you're talking about and what we can do or not do. The Treasurer's Department pays for 2.5 people right now.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to eliminate one of those and we pay 1.5 people? Who's going to do the work?
Well, I think moving forward, we'll have a working treasurer that answers the window and answers the counter. I don't think you've done that the last few years, from what I've seen. I think if our new treasurer, whoever it might be, will be a working treasurer that actually answers the counter in the window. Ms. Tinneberry?
Yeah, I have been looking at the same thing about number of employees. What were the departments you said, Mr. Supervisor?
I said one in maintenance, one in assessing, and one in treasurers.
Maintenance, assessing, and treasure. Well, okay, I was going to check that over with what I had too, but I'd have to say that to Mr. Francis's comment, the Treasurer's Department is limited in what you do. I mean, I know you're saying that you bill one of them to the sewer, but I don't think it takes a full-time employee to do the sewer. I mean, when you only send out bills quarterly and, I mean, I just don't think it takes that many. I think the Treasurer's Department could, I thought, get along with the treasurer, deputy treasurer, and one full-time employee. And that full-time employee could be cross-trained to not only work do the sewer bills, but also wait on the counter. It's like I said in the past, Now that we have credit card, you can pay online, you mail it in, you have the Dropbox. Well, the Dropbox would require someone in the office to be taking care of that, but there's just so many other ways that people pay their bills now. No one in my family, except my husband and I, pay bills by check. Everybody, my nephews, nieces, sons and daughters, everybody pays online and has automatic withdrawal. So I know that there is some accounting processes to be done even with that, but I don't think it's the traffic in the Treasurer's Department that has been there in past years.
Well, I have automatic bill pay on my bills over there, so I know Amy's cross-trained. I watch her answer the window. I watch her answer the counter. I think the whole deal with the sewer, as far as Dave Manning spending half of his time on the sewer department, I don't buy it, to be honest with you. As far as, as much money that's allocated into the sewer fund, I don't buy it personally, but, ultimately that's not going to save us money on our budget. But whatever the board thinks, they're just suggestions from what I've seen. I don't personally think, like I said, whoever takes over the Treasury Department, a lot of times it's, so-and-so's on a vacation, you got to bring somebody in. Well, we need everybody in there that's going to be working to answer the window, answer the counter, and do what it takes. We all have to step up here. We all have to do what we can do to make a big difference. It's going to be hard on some departments, but we got to do what we got to do. Mr. Tinneberry?
What were you thinking about in assessing and maintenance? You said you were going to cut one from maintenance and one from assessing. Are you talking about seasonal then, or?
No, one full-time position in assessing, one full-time position in maintenance. It sucks. I hate talking about it, but it's what reality is right now for this board. This board's facing the potential of $1.3 million, okay? That's the potential. I've talked to more people at the state level. That's the potential we have to look at. Do I think we're going to get there? No. But I think we need to do our very best to come close to that number, okay? And personally, I think those are some areas that we can cut in.
Yeah, I don't have too much more to add to that. Just to echo, I guess my agreement with Mr. Peroni on that. I've looking this all over the last few weeks or whatever. I don't see how you get to where you need to be without. I would agree. I think you got to move 3 people out. I don't know how else you get there.
Well, I know Mr. Clements. I know he's got some areas he's brought up that I think we could save. I did talk to the union rep for the labor. We do not have to have a lawyer represent us for the union contract. He highly, highly recommended we do, but it's not something we have to have. If you guys wanted to trust a couple of people to negotiate that union contract, that could save us $15,000 there. But that's up to the board. Mr. Clements?
Yeah, since it was my suggestion, just so you know, it was not my intent that somehow we would write a contract and execute it. But given where we are, and I certainly don't want to speak about negotiations before they start, I think it's pretty evident that there's not a lot to give or get given the financial constraints of the township. And it would seem to make sense to me that before we bring in an attorney for $14,000, that we would at least sit down and listen to see if the contract could be massaged and then turned over for $2,000 to $3,000 to be finalized, and let's save that difference. If all of a sudden we find out after one meeting that it's not going to work out and we in fact need assistance, then we ask for assistance. But I think at a minimum, we need to attempt to save that money. Thank you.
No, I realize we're not negotiating with 500 workers. We're negotiating with potentially 2. Whether it's 500 workers or 2. I did try to get him just to look over it last time, and he did come to a meeting, and it was $15,000. I talked him down to 10, I think it was. He wasn't happy about it, but I'm just saying, we might want to do a little, personally, I mean, we've had a lawyer look over for the past how many years, Trudy and Nancy? I mean, long time, right? I don't think we've ever negotiated without a labor attorney. So my whole thing is what are the changes the union wants to make? We compare them to what we have. I mean, we're not rewriting a book here. I'm in agreement with you, TC. I think it can be done, but it's got to be a board saying, hey, we trust you, Crony, we trust you, Trudy, to sit in on this and make it happen type deal, or whoever.
Paul,
So,
I think to add to TC's comments too
sorry,
as well.
Hand up.
Same thing, if we had a couple people that were able to sit in, do some general discussions with the union and have them put a proposal forward what they'd like you said, the contract itself, it's not like a complete rewrite of a contract. There's not a huge detail of things to be changed in there. And if at some point we get to the point of needing legal, I think that even though the background of Goldsmith and Graham is not full labor attorney, I think that they could give guidance if we needed it, for a heck of a lot less money than spending 15 grand.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you, but they're not labor attorneys, and they'll tell you that as well.
That's true. And
I think we're dealing with something kind of not too technical. Hey, we want 2% raise. Okay,
right.
It's no different than it could be that simple. Or the union rep could see it as an opportunity. Hey, there's no labor attorney involved. Now's the time for me to make some changes these guys might not catch.
Well, but you make the point right up front. Any significant changes, of course, we have the right to. If we have to go to an attorney, then we do. But up front, we wouldn't necessarily have to go that route.
I think we need to get back to the employees, though. Are we going to have Dave cut one full-time position out of each one of these departments I mentioned, or what? How we want to work this? Mr. Francis, you're muted.
As long as we're talking about reducing staff, the 3 departments have deputies. Only 2 of them are required to have a deputy. The other one is not. Maybe we ought to reduce the supervisor's deputy so that department would also share the grief.
Well, I think so far I'm the only one that's really shared grief. I've laid off multiple people in multiple departments that are still laid off. The ordinance department's running extremely thin right now. Listen, if we want to get petty, we can. I'm trying to get serious, Mr. Francis, and really save our budget.
You're the one that brought up the pettiness.
I'm not trying to get petty here. I'm trying to get a job done. Okay? I think you've been getting petty the last few meetings with computers and all this jazz. Let's focus on the meat and potatoes and get the job done. If you don't want to vote for 3 employees to leave, vote no. But I'm just saying, I'm bringing up hard numbers, hard suggestions that are tough for all of us. If you want to cut $5 grand off AL because we want to do it, go ahead. But it's not going to get the job done and get us to the $1 million range. Ms. Tinneberry?
Well, I was just going to say that whether it's a deputy supervisor or a secretary, the supervisor has always had someone there to assist. You can't have a supervisor alone in a department. It doesn't even make sense because can't handle all the calls and all the meetings and everything. I mean, that just doesn't make sense. And I think one in each of those departments, those were kind of the departments I was looking at too. I'm not saying who should be cut. I think that each department head should make that decision. But I just think that I agree with the supervisor that we're not going to get to where we need to be. And again, I totally believe that this is a long-term effort. It's not 1 year. It'll be next year and maybe even the next year because the economy is not going to bounce back that quickly. And our state shared revenue is based on the economy. So I just think that, we do need to cut employees, and it doesn't make sense to cut somebody out of the supervisor's department.
But the fact of the matter is do we make the decision at a board meeting or can we get agreements to cut it out of the budget right now? And I think this is a topic, if we're going to do it, that we need to hear from everybody on it, to be quite honest with you.
Ms. Tinberry, do you know the process on that? Like what the protocol would be?
Well, right now, we're talking about approving the budget. So if we're gonna cut somebody out, that would be a cut in the budget that we're kind of agreeing to. Well, this is a regular meeting. I mean, it's not a regular meeting, but it's a officially called meeting. Trudy made notice of it, and so you can make decisions at this meeting. But personally, I'm thinking that each department head should make, if we could agree to cut 3 people, but that would be the department head's decision of who to cut. And I personally wouldn't want, like Mr. Francis said, I've never worked in that department. I have worked with treasurers for many years. I work, we do it differently on my job in Ida, but I know the responsibilities and the workload of the treasurer's department, and I don't know any other in Frenchtown or Monroetown. I don't know any other treasurer that has 5 people and a seasonal. So that's just my opinion. I think it can get done with 3 full-time people and possibly seasonal during tax collection time.
Okay, I'm gonna make it easy. Dave, cut 1 out of full-time out of maintenance, 1 full-time out of assessing, and 1 full-time out of treasurer's department.
Well, doesn't it depend on which full-time though you're cutting? Because
Well,
I mean, the benefits and all that.
The department heads are gonna have to make that decision. You're talking a few $1,000s.
Well, I'd like to hear from Rick and TC. I'd like to hear from the other
Well,
trustees because
I don't believe that, I would like to see Treasury work with 4 and see if they really do it first, because I saw all the bills that came in while we didn't even have foot traffic, and they were here late trying to take care of bills. People still want to, that's why we opened the window. People still want to pay their bills in person. And it wasn't just a few, it was hundreds every day.
Yeah, but
So I don't agree at this point.
That's intermittent though. I've watched over in that department to where it comes in waves. There's times when they're busy and there's times when they're not at all.
Well, I think all departments are like that. All departments have busy times.
And I agree with you, but I think, there's some departments that are pretty consistent though, and assessing being one of them. Like they did a study, they came to the township board, we all voted that this is what they need. Has the treasury department ever done that? No.
I don't know. I can't answer.
Did a 5-month study and proved to the board, here's what we need. Do I think we can still cut? It's going to be tough, but guess what? People are going to have to roll up their sleeves and do what we got to do. The bottom line is we don't have much wiggle room here with this budget. And these are some areas where what we got to do. Ms. Tinberry? Go ahead, Trudy.
I was just going to say, but we have to remember the treasurer's department just doesn't take sewer and water bills. They're taking permits, they're doing building, they're doing all money. Anything that comes into this township has to go through the treasurer's department. My passports, my graves, anything that comes with money has to go through them. So we have to consider that. There's a lot of things that I don't think we're thinking of this second that has to go through that department. And they have had 4.5 people, but now they're going to be down to 4.
Yeah, I bet you if we did a time study on how much time is played on Candy Crush, it'd probably knock off what needs to be knocked off, but.
Well, Trudy, with all due respect, you're talking about a time where the treasurer was not in and the deputy treasurer was there, but the other 2, my understanding was they were laid off. So you're talking about, maybe hundreds. I haven't seen hundreds, but during a time where the staff was low, was only 1 person in there, or maybe 2. I mean, I don't think that's a fair analysis, but you know, I don't know. My way of budgeting or cutting is you cut it out, and then if you need it, you bring it back in. That's what budget adjustments are for. You test the waters at the smallest level, and then if you need it back, you bring it back.
Well, that's why I said leave some seasonal dollars in there. You get in your busy seasonal times where bills are coming in, you bring your seasonal person in if you have to have it.
But we all know once we cut a position, it's hard to bring a position back. Most likely it wouldn't come back, even if it's needed. And you gotta say that even though, those 100 bills coming in a day, there's no foot traffic right now either. So you're gonna have a window open, you're gonna have the counter open. If you go to 3 people, you're gonna close the window. I guarantee the window will get closed.
Right now you have 4 full-time people.
Mhm.
Okay, if you go to 3 full-time people, you have 1 window and one counter. That leaves you 1 full-time person to kind of help out in between, answer phones. If there's a lineup at the counter, you could help out. I mean, and that's, like I said, and that would be intermittent to where all 3 stations are full, personally.
You
But
wanted that opinion. That was my opinion. I disagree.
I respect it.
Oh, I'm here every day seeing this department work, and I would disagree. So that's mine.
Ms. Cinderberg?
Well, I asked for many years for reports on, especially when we got the credit card pay possibility. I asked for many years to see what the how many foot traffic and how many credit cards and how many online, and I never ever got anything about that. So disappointing that we don't have any documentation to give us any kind of leg up here in knowing what it is we're talking about. But I ask again to hear from the trustees. We're talking serious things here. We're talking about the budget. It's this is much the trustees' responsibility to set the budget. In fact, that's one of our main jobs. And I haven't heard. I mean, why can't the trustees speak up?
Well,
Go ahead, Rick.
I'll jump in there. Nancy, I'll be honest. We haven't been able to get a word in. So let's start right there. I don't disagree on some of the cut we're talking about. Now, remember on the Treasury Department, as of next week, Krista is going to be assuming responsibilities for that department. She's got up to, I believe it's 30 days to hire a deputy for that department, which is a requirement in the treasurer's office. Not sure what her plans are. If she were to choose to take someone internally to be the deputy, that automatically would open up a spot. If she doesn't, she wants to go outside, then that's where we'd have to potentially eliminate that spot. So that's something that I think we could probably put reduce a number there, but it's going to be up to Krista how she wants to move somebody into that position or not. I don't want to put it this way, but if she wanted to protect a person, that would be the way that if we cut one, if she brought somebody from her department that's one of the full-time into the deputy, then that's how you protect that person from taking a layoff or termination. As for the assessing department, I can only say enough that I know that we have to meet our requirements every year. If they believe that we can do that and meet our requirements by reducing a head count, we just need to be very careful that we don't get too far behind, because we had to beef that department up not too long ago because we were behind. So we want to be careful on that one. As for maintenance, I think Paul's probably correct on that one. I think we could get by with reducing one there. I'll
Thank
defer
you.
to PC.
Sorry, Mr. Clements, I was on mute. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to echo Rick's comment. A lot of this is listening, and what I hear in listening is what could happen. What could happen. What I know is happening is we are going to see an incredible reduction in revenue. And so we have to adjust to that. This isn't personal. It's not punitive. And I would certainly hope that this isn't about my office, your office, their office. This is about the 7 of us being responsible to 34,000 residents in this community as to what is in their best interest. And I agree with what Rick has said. I'm sitting here pondering in my head, my only hesitation to the cuts of the 3 positions at all is I would like to see that the current deputy treasurer be the one to make the decision over what happens in that department. No disrespect to Mr. Francis at all, but with Paul leaving in just a couple of days, I feel like it's her decision to make, not his. And so that's my only hesitation, if any, and if we can somehow make that work, then I don't see another choice.
Mr. Francis?
I wholeheartedly agree with DC. I should not be making the decision on who. It needs to be Krista, because she's going to be the treasurer in a few days. I wholeheartedly agree with that.
Mr. Montry?
Well, I guess that kind of makes the decision then right there. And I was just going to say that I agree with Mr. Steiner about like the movement. Like if you say, all right, we're gonna you're gonna eliminate a position from that department, and then that's on to Mr. Francis's point, that'll be on the treasurer, how that happens, I guess. And I think that makes sense. And like, yeah, like going back to, like I had kind of already chimed in, looking through different things. There's stuff that you would have to do a ton of digging to even find out if it's a good move and if it's saving any money or not. I mean, there's stuff like the microphones, getting new microphones. It's like, okay, well, you could say we're cutting that. We're not getting new microphones, but that's not, to Mr. Clement's point, that's not getting us where we need to be. I agree with Mr. Peroni. Every way I sliced it, I don't know how you get around it without cutting 3. And I would agree that those are the 3. So I think 2 of them are with assessing and maintenance. That's under Mr. Peroni. And then with the treasurer, I think Mr. Francis just agreed that is kind of, that's the deal. So I don't know if we need to discuss further or not, but I would concur on that.
Mr. Steiner?
Now, mind you also that, and I think it goes back to Nancy's point a couple meetings back, the treasurer's office, she will have an elected position per se for Krista. The deputy, the salary and everything is to be determined by the township board for that position whenever she appoints that. So that may be a small reduction there. Same thing with the person that's eliminated. I think you said we've got the 2 full-time. Are their salaries identical? So, and if they are, or at least you don't have to tell me exactly, but if they're pretty close, we could use a number there, and then again, it would be up to Krista to make the determination.
Mr. Francis?
Rick, if you're speaking of the Treasurer's Department, those 2 full-timers, they are equal pay.
Okay.
Mr. Francis, can you break down in the sewer department the expenditures? We have a deputy treasurer's salary, where money's going into it. You have administration costs where there's money going into it. Finance director, 37,000, and clerical wages, 62. So I'm just trying to figure out how much time is spent from Amy, Cindy, and Krista in the sewer department. That would give us kind of an idea
Of what?
Of how much time is being spent in that area. What are they doing? Like Krista and Cindy, what are they doing for the sewer department?
Well, they do handle all the money that's coming in for that. They do, Amy's salary is charged 100% to the sewer department. Half of Cindy's salary is charged to that department. A portion of the deputy treasurer is charged to that department, and part of the finance director is charged to that department. It's hard to guesstimate how much time is actually spent because it's almost daily. A little piece of work here, then you go back to the other department. It's as the people come in or the need arises, that's when you spend it in that department.
But Dave, you can honestly say you spend 50% of your time in the sewer department? Okay, that looked like a yes. Did anybody else have any questions? So is everybody, we're moving forward with the 3 positions. Obviously, Ms. Janaszek will make the choice once, you know, we get to that point, but as far as moving forward with it, you know, Ms. Tidbury?
Well, we've talked a long time about the treasurer's department, but I'm still concerned or questioning the maintenance. That's a full-time person that we're getting rid of?
Correct.
And so you're going to determine who that person is?
No, the union will.
Oh, the union will. And the assessing department, that's a full-time person?
Correct.
And you're going to determine that one? Or, I mean, if we're letting the treasurer determine, I just want to know who's deciding who these people that are going to be let go, who's deciding?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to decide for that as well, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so Mr. Manning's speaking, but you can't hear him because he's muted. You gotta unmute yourself, Dave.
Quick question, Paul. So do we need to have that at a board meeting coming up to reduce those positions, or does that take an official vote to do that?
To reduce the positions, you're gonna have to bring it to a board meeting to
That's
actually
what I'm saying.
do that, yeah. But as far as the reflecting the budget, we can reflect the budget now because the board is agreeance to move forward with that reduction in the
Correct.
budget.
So that's
Yeah,
one-
I think, and then we'd have to probably, depending on the situation, you know, whether it's, you know, how we handle, we'll have to talk with Phil Nance on that.
Right, that's why I was saying, so we'll have to get it, I mean, this next meeting is already, agenda's already done and everything, so probably have to get that done the following meeting, because then we'll be into the next fiscal year budget after that.
Correct. Mr. Francis?
On the position in the maintenance department, has any discussion or thought been given to discussing with the employee that's nearest retirement? Would he be willing to retire a little earlier than he had planned if he had some sort of an incentive? I know that particular position does qualify for the retirement medical that's paid by the township.
I have tried a number of times. The answer to your question is no, he's not willing to leave early.
Okay, I just wondered. I hadn't heard. I just hadn't heard.
No, he's not willing to, no. But yeah, it's a good thought. It was worked on. Actually, Phil Nance worked on it with the union representative. Tried to get it worked out, and it did not get worked out. The only thing that was discussed that was an option is that person would be willing to take a layoff right now, with the option to come back in July if the stimulus package was removed. If the stimulus package was extended, he would stay on layoff. And my point is, you know, it's like that doesn't really get the job done of what we're trying to do, because at the end of July it would come back and then we'd have to figure it out there. But so that was the only thing. So okay. Well, does anybody else want to go over anything, Mr. Clemens? Did you want to go over park board?
Yes, there was a couple of questions that came up. Within the park board budget, that's showing $4,100 in unemployment compensation, line 208-721-40. I wanted to be sure that was in fact reflective, and if we're making this maintenance move, will that number decrease? It seems high for the portion of employment that the park board pays for maintenance.
We have one temporary person that is charged directly to the park. If that temporary person draws unemployment, then the park board would be charged for any unemployment benefits that individual receive.
What do you mean
Okay.
temporary?
Yes, it's a temporary position.
Seasonal employee, Nancy.
Seasonal, yeah.
Yes,
Seasonal, so how are they on call or do they come? Is it one of your maintenance guys? I'm not sure I understand what.
Every year
Temporary.
for grass cutting season, we have a lot of grass that needs to be cut. We hire a few seasonal people.
Why does
Okay.
that make
I
park board?
don't know if they would be well, because the park board pays for one of them. You know, for the maintenance, they spend so much time in the park area. I don't really get it either, but, but as far as employment, I'm not so sure they're eligible being seasonal employees for unemployment. I don't know. I can't answer that.
Well, I think we need to think about how we break up all these people into these different departments because the park board gets their money from the general fund. So what's the point? Why don't we just keep all the maintenance people or seasonal people in the same department? I think it's too confusing, and I'll just be honest. I'm not being facetious. I'm telling you what people say to me, and that is they think it's a game of moving the ball back and forth and don't know where the ball is under the cup or whatever that's called. I just think that we need to be more open about what department is paying for what. It's too confusing to the public. Okay, well, sorry, TC, anything else on the park board?
No, but to circle back to it, I still don't feel like $4,100. Is there a history or I'm not seeing the historical that supports that?
since I've been here, nobody on the park board has ever drawn unemployment. So yes, we could take those dollars out.
Then my suggestion would be let's draw that, and if in fact they're faced with it, then it can come to the township board and we can reevaluate and a compensation case there. The other area was line 208-803 was engineering fees, was budgeted for $7,000 this year. Talked with the park board at length, and they asked me to please relay to all of you that their position is there is no money to give. I've explained to them that we all understand that, but the reality is that the budgets are getting cut and we have to deal with it as best we can. There is not a need for $7,000 in engineering fees and that there aren't going to be any engineered projects. However, they're asking that some money be left in that fund because the skate park is at a point where it may have to be removed and closed. If that's the case, then there would be some funds necessary to complete that task. Currently, the line item is $7,000. My suggestion would be a reduction of $5,000 and leave $2,000 in that line item if the board's agreeable to that. The third area that, again, large protests from the park board. They don't want to see this changed. I completely understand. It's line 208-885 for community ed. There was a forecasted increase of $5,000 to community ed. And that is an area that I feel like if we have to cut, if this board feels like there's no other option, then that could be reduced back to its annual $25,000. But beyond that, anything else to this budget is going to gut it to a point that I think our residents are going to just pay an undue price.
Ms. Tenneberry?
Well, I'm not looking to cut services to the public at all, but I think that we need to be like we have been tonight talking about how it's used and how much you really need, and don't ask for the moon, ask for what, you know, again, the budgeting process is you budget for what you need, not for what you want. And then if you find you have to have something or want something and the money's there, you come back and ask for it to the board. It's not a free-for-all where you put $200,000 in your budget so you can move money around on the line items and do with what you want. I mean, somehow we got to get that through our heads that this is not about having, you know, $200,000 in your budget. So,
Hey, Nancy, oh, sorry.
what?
To that point, Dave, is there any other areas that you can think of off the top of your head, like Mr. Clements just brought up, where $4,000 is budgeted, but it's never been used? Is there any areas that you can think of where there's money allocated and there's money put to where we could come to the board if we need it?
I can answer that question tomorrow.
Ms.
Well,
Tanner,
to further my thought in that vein, I've talked to a couple people that their budgets are, you know, set by, I don't know who. I'm pretty sure it's the finance director, that they get these budgets with numbers already in there. And because I've asked them, what do you need this for? What do you need that for? And they say, I don't know. I never saw that. So, you know what I mean? I think that if we're going to let department heads kind of pick and choose what they want, then we need to, you know, be able to make sure that it's what they have requested. And this is just one of those areas that frustrates me because nobody knows how it got there or why it's there.
well, Nancy, let me speak to that really quick, because that's not, I'm going to defend Dave here because I get all the budgets. I go to the department heads. We go through them. Now, Dave puts in the numbers from previous years. But as far as the budgets coming to this board, that's all from department heads that we went over, not with Dave.
Okay, well, I'm not going to name names, but it's two of your department heads that told me that. So we'll just leave it there. I have a couple other areas when we're ready to move on. I don't know if the TC's done with the park board or not.
Mr. Montry?
To Nancy's point, about like having money, what is your opinion about the money in the library fund? Like I think we pretty much left as is, and my question was going to be, I don't know that we have budgeted for that chiller, or if this board really came to a decision on that, and then we still have $250,000 in capital outlay sitting there. I was like curious, like to what you just said. I was curious to what do you think about like in that regard?
Well, in the past, the park board or the library board was funded out of the general fund. Now that they have a millage, I don't know that and it's a service to the public. I'm all about service to the public. And so, you know, when you have a millage, you know what money's coming in. Basically, the state shared revenues are for the general fund that's going to be cut. And so I think that as long as the park board has requests to do what they told the public they were going to do, when they worked hard to get the millage passed, I think that we need to let those decisions that they made ride. However, it's just like at home, if my furnace goes out and I budgeted for a new car, but I didn't budget for a furnace, you have to make adjustments. So I'm all for making adjustments if the chiller is more needed right now than whatever the carpet. I guess you've been talking about that. But it doesn't mean that we cut the carpet out. It just maybe mean that we do them in stages.
I spoke to it last meeting. I kind of said the things, you know, there's quite a bit they wanted to get done. I said, throw the chiller in there. Let's take care of the, you know, the structure, make sure the structure's solid and make sure we're running top notch. If we got a chiller in there, that means we've gotten LED taken care of, controls, the chiller, The building is gonna run top notch. Maintenance is gonna be at an all-time low for this place, the cost to run it, because I'm telling you right now, maintenance is continuous on the chiller. We're constantly spending money, putting Freon in it and doing this or that. I think there's a lot of things that can be done, smaller things. I think we hold off this fiscal year on the carpet and the rearrangement of the desk. See where we're at after we do, the things that they want to do. And then the next fiscal year, we'll do the final projects with the money that we have left. Personally, that's what I think we should do. I think the carpet needs to be done. I think carpet squares is a good thing. They'll last a long time. But I think we need to take our time with it. Really see if we want to leave that center row, because that will save us a huge amount of money for the carpet. And then, as far as the desk, and maybe we can get a better deal on it. So, Craig, I would say everything I want to do minus the carpet and the rearrangement of the desk. Keep that in place, get that done. We'll get the chiller, add the chiller in there, and then the following.
Well, that's what I was saying. Do you need to make a budget adjustment for that? And then if they're as that process goes along, it comes back to the board, or you just leave it as is? That's just my question.
Well, everything they do is going to come to the board, but I don't think you need to adjust the budget, do you, Nancy? Because the money's already there from the millage. It's not going to go in our general fund.
Right, there wasn't any line item approval of the millage. It was just the advisory board came up with the things that are needed in the library, and that the amount of the millage that was requested was approved based on those things. I haven't seen an invoice, not invoice, I mean a estimate for the chiller. I don't even know how much we're talking about for a chiller.
40 to 50,000. We've gotten a few, or two estimates from different companies. Monroe Plumbing and Heating was one of them, and Rawlings, that have both said the chiller's on its way out. It's at its life expectancy. So there's two well-named known companies in Michigan that have both said the same thing, and both said around 40 to 50,000 to replace it. It's a big job. Hey, Dave, after I give you this, how much do we want to keep in there for legal, for labor attorney? We have 15,000 budgeted right now. You guys want to bump it down to 5? And then Dave, can you go over what we've cut so far today in this meeting? Because when you sent out the update of all that was cuts that was made, I didn't see anything. I know, but I didn't see anything that was cut in the supervisor's department within what you sent there. I just want to make sure everything's correct, that the cuts were made, because even like my department, we cut out conference workshops, and I didn't even see that on that paper you sent out.
Well, I sent out 2. I
Okay.
think the conference and workshops was on the first.
Okay, I just want to make sure, but
Okay,
you guys want to take that down to 10 then, or 5,000 for union negotiations?
Yes.
It's not enough to have Phil Nance work the deal. I can tell you that. 15 grand is what it costs for him, but I'm saying if we want to have
So
some money in there.
what's the plan then to work the deal? If we're not going to have Phil Nance, what is the plan?
Well, I would have to negotiate with another trustee. And then ultimately when we're done, we can we can ask Phil how much it would cost for him to look over the changes. But as far as the negotiations part, maybe that's what would save us a ton, or we can have Phil look at it or something. But I can tell you this, Phil doesn't like to step into that arena because that's more along the lines of Phil Nance's arena. Or we look at the changes that we made, we take it before the board and approve it. We just have to know exactly what the changes are. But I think if we left 5 in there, that would give us quite a bit of room to get some legal work done on it. But
I think so.
Ms. Hirschberger?
I'm not sure if everyone's aware, the last meeting I said that this was going before us on June 2nd, but with all the talks and everything, I pulled that, and now it will go before us on the 16th to give us more time. It just didn't seem like we were ready.
Ms. Stanivers?
So you mean you republished the public hearing?
I pulled it before it could publish, so it did not
Oh.
publish.
Okay. Because, you can hold the public hearing anytime, but you don't have to approve your budget at the public hearing. But, I mean, that's fine too, as long as you got pulled before the advertising costs
Yes.
came up.
Yes.
So, quick question, when does the board want to make the cuts? When do we need to make them by? Are we trying to do it before this fiscal year ends?
Has to
We
be.
have to, we
That's,
have to approve it by the end of this fiscal year, and the
No, I'm
16th.
saying cuts for the employees. I'm just saying, when do we want to actually let the employees go? I know the union contract, you have to give the union a week notice. For that, we would want to give the employees a little bit of time.
Well, it would have to go on the second board meeting agenda even to proceed. So you're looking at the end of the fiscal year, pretty much.
Okay. Ms. Tenenberry?
are we ready for some of the other ones other cuts I was looking at?
Go ahead.
Well, I went through the budget and I added up all these, there's forms and supplies, office supplies, operating supplies. I don't know why we have so many different supply things. But they added up to 112,000, and I'm thinking that's a lot of money. I don't know what it goes for, pens and pencils and paper, but it seems to me that, I would like to see that all consolidated into just supplies so that we know what we're talking about. But there was $112,000 there, and engineering fees, $113,700. I mean, that just astounds me that we don't have any, and yet we're paying $113,000 for engineering. I think that we need to, I would like to see that cut down to at least, wait, let me see. I'm sorry, that was 113,000, at least down to 90,000. 90,000 for engineering is just way beyond me. And the contracted services, $217,000 for contracted services. We're contracting all these people, which I don't know who they are. I've asked before what bills you pay out of contracted services, and for the most part, I don't know. I have to look into it. So, $217,000. We can't do some of this work ourselves. It depends on what it is, but I would like to see contracted services reduced. And then, let's see, maintenance. We have maintenance equipment, maintenance for general, maintenance vehicle. How do we know? We don't know what there is. I'm thinking that out of these, legal fees, 83,000. I've never gotten anywhere with that one, but it seems to me like that's not the labor attorney in there either. That's all, something else. But seriously, 217,000 for contracted services. I say we can cut that, and then if we find out that that's not enough, we need to contract something, then we can go take a budget adjustment. Somebody can come back to the board and ask for a certain amount, whatever, that we're gonna have to spend for that, and deal with it that way. But I'm just shocked that some of these are so high, and because they're divided up all over the place, you really can't see how much you're spending, because nobody knows what comes out of there.
Dave, do you want to speak to this, or?
Well, contracted services are divided up through the entire Bedford Township system, okay? And contracted services are contracted services. If we bring somebody in under contract to perform a service, then that's where it gets charged to.
Well, I'd like to know what that is. That's my point.
Give me a few minutes and I'll let you know, okay?
Yeah, I think we just need more line items, for construction, for this or for that, that really breaks it down a little bit more. But I have a hard time just saying, let's cut contracted services or let's cut this thing if we don't know what it's for. So, because then if it's for something that's needed, it's just going to come back. I get what you're saying, Nancy, if you need something, come before the board, but a lot of these things are budgeted for, like roads and, security and, whatever. A lot of it's already planned for, so.
Roads is pretty obvious, but I don't know. I mean, it's not defined.
Does anybody, while we're waiting for Mr. Manning, does anybody else have anything they wanted to bring up of anything they saw in the budget of areas we can cut? I think what
Not
we've done,
areas that we can cut, but, like I had brought up last year in this budget process, and we talked at length about a capital improvement plan and establishing that. And then when we got to approving the actual annual budget, that was not in there. So we had to revisit that, and it came back. And to Ms. Tinberry's point a couple of meetings ago, I think it's 752, 101, 752 is the last one in the general fund, was supposed to be CIP fund. And we had agreed that that was going to be 35,000 in there. It was said when that fund was established that it was 50, but I think that was incorrect. I believe that CIP fund should already have $35,000 in it, not being put $15,000 in it now.
Mr. Francis.
Mr. Montre, at last year's budget meetings, funds were going to be set aside for capital improvements. They're below the bottom line. It's not a budgeted item. So we're going to have our revenue or expenses, then below that, if you go back and look, there was X number of dollars set aside for capital improvements.
How much has been set aside?
I do believe it's, well, we can't set it aside till the end of this fiscal year. I do believe it was like $35,000. So
Where?
it's a non-budgeted line item. So when this fiscal year
So nobody can see it?
when this fiscal year is completed, an entry will be made, taking it out of the year's surplus and putting it into a reserve account for capital improvements in it's a restricted area.
So instead of our cash on hand being 1.85 million, it'll be 1.825 million, right? Or 35,000
No,
less.
this is not going to affect cash at all. This is going to be an entry moving it out of non-restricted reserve into a restricted reserve account.
So wait a minute.
Not the balance.
So what reserve fund are you pulling it out of? Because I thought we didn't have any general fund.
Fund balance. Fund balance. All you're doing is reserving part of the fund balance.
That's what I just asked him. He said, no, it's coming out of a restricted fund to go into
No, it's
another.
No, he's saying it's coming out of unrestricted fund balance, put into restricted fund balance.
So I was right. We'll go from 1.85 million. It'll show less cash on hand because that's being set aside.
Right.
Okay. All right, and contracted, In contracted services, we have IT Wright, George Welling, payroll, looking for the big ones. KCI, property advisor. It's when the golf course was done.
What was that one? What about it?
When the golf course was assessed, they brought an outside firm in to do that.
Oh, assessing.
That's for cleaning services. Habitat, the company that puts the runners down on the floor.
Mats.
Stevens Disposals. Elevator, when they come in and inspect the elevator. Asphalt, the maintenance in the parking lot for the asphalt that was put down, sealer and asphalt.
But that's a one-time deal.
Well, yeah, so I'm just going through what we have here.
Yeah.
Rawlings Heating and Cooling. Great Lakes Exhibition.
That was one time. Great Lakes Excavating was a one-time deal because we had the water main or water leak in the parking lot.
So those are the,
TC, did you get an
Thank you.
answer from Basonic with the sheriff's department to where is it going to be $250,000 added or is it going to be a $60,000 ad with the officers? Did you get an answer?
He did respond back and his answer was not clear. So I fired back an email today asking for very, very specific clarification. But and fundamentally said, in all of this, what you haven't answered is this a quarterly or an annual adjustment? I also had some questions as to the formulation because I still question the number. But most of what his email referenced made sense based on the conversation I've had.
So it could be 60,000 a quarter.
I would guess at this point that it's probably 60,000 a quarter.
Oh my gosh! So our police fund could be bumped up 250,000 a year.
Could.
How can they? How can they not give us more of a heads up if it is that?
The contract. Yeah, well, just so you know, I had a contract both with he and Chairman Levens because the contract specifically says that the local authority will be notified. The answer I got was a very delicate and a polite, we're notified when it's discretionary or subjective, but because this was contractually based. And if you read between the lines, it was a little bit of whoops, we're sorry. I think maybe Dave or Trudy had a conversation with someone as well. But no, there hasn't been a great answer given yet.
Dave, do you have some clarification on that? Do you know if it's 60,000 a quarter or a year?
I talked to the finance person up there and they said we should have notified people, but we failed to do so.
I get the notification. I'm saying, do you know the number?
No, I don't know the number.
Okay, so nobody knows the number. So that's something, guys. I mean, you know.
And that's for what? Salary adjustments for their union contract?
No, it's for
Benefits.
additional benefits.
Okay, and we pay for 10 deputies. If it's $240,000, it's $24,000 per deputy
So
that we pay for? If it's 60 a quarter, it does not seem right. We need some clarification from them.
Well, TC's trying to clarify. Go ahead, TC.
In his email back, he stated that the increase from 3 different line item categories were $24,489.90 per deputy. which leaves the county looking at roughly a $1,322,000 increase for all of these benefits. So I have asked him to confirm that because it seems exceptionally high as well to me.
And just so everybody knows, and TC, correct me if I'm wrong, basically the new officers aren't contributing to this fund anymore. So they had to increase the cost to be able to pay for the retirees, correct?
Yeah, it had to do with actuarial and whether the fund
Yeah.
was loaded correctly, yes. So as soon as I get a response back, I will let you know, but the reason why I haven't is because I'm still challenging the math.
And when would this take effect, do you know?
Well, they sent us a bill. We're already holding the first quarter bill. And just so you know, my
So did
frustration.
they realize that we could lose 2 officers within us? I mean, it's that big of a change to our budget. I mean, are they prepared for that when they thought about sending it out, Ms. Tineberry?
Well, I'm saying that we need, I mean, I appreciate TC's, working back and forth here with them, but we need a letter to the board. It's the board's decision about the police, 10 deputies or maybe less. So we need a letter to the board. What kind of official communication is this? This is shabby, if you ask me. We need a letter to the board regarding this whole incident and an explanation.
Well, maybe Jill Malone could come down to our township board meeting and explain it to us. But I doubt that would ever happen, so.
Mike Pizanic would be the last guy, would be the guy that ought to explain it to us.
He's Masonic and anything. He's the guy behind the money in the contract.
Well, just so you guys know, I mean, TC's been emailing back and forth with questions, but we've all been on the emails. So
I haven't.
I haven't.
I haven't been on any emails.
I am sending the entire email thread to everyone as we speak.
Well, I'm not interested in emails. I want an official letter signed by somebody.
No, you're right. Trudy, is that something you could do with Sonic tomorrow? Just saying, you know, can we get somebody to come to maybe we could get somebody to come to this board meeting Tuesday to explain it? We could add it to the agenda. Or does anybody want to shoot Mr. Basonic a message, ask him to come to the meeting, or I could do it? DC, do you want to shoot him a message?
TC's already sending him. Do you want to
Okay.
just,
DC, is that something you could try to get him to come to our board meeting?
Yeah, I will shoot him an email now. I'm also going to include Henry Levens on that email as well.
Okay. Ms. Tineberry?
What do you hope to accomplish by having someone come and explain their side of it? I mean, I haven't heard anything that
we need to-
stipulates or shows that they're not responsible for violating the contract and not letting us know ahead of time.
I don't disagree with you. That's why we need him to come to the meeting, tell us the facts, what it's actually going to cost us, and then the board can decide how we move forward. I mean, I don't know what else to tell. I don't know, Mr. Francis.
Maybe we ought to ask legal counsel to review the contract that we have with the sheriff's department that we spent so much time on to see if it is a violation or not. Are we on the hook for that, not knowing?
Mr. Clements?
Yeah, I was going to suggest the exact same thing at this point. The other thing is we're going to have to figure it out because their board meeting is essentially the exact same time slot as ours. So both Henry and Mike would be at the county commission meeting while we're having ours. So I think the best bet at this point is to try to get clarification legally as to why this is taking place. And I agree with Nancy. It's no longer an email back and forth. It needs to be handled officially, township to county at this point.
All right, we'll look into it tomorrow.
Which one seems more likely? Is either one any more realistic than the other?
Well, I would think I'd lean towards the bigger number because when you're talking about people not paying into a fund anymore, that's usually a big cost. But I'm blown away that the cost will go from a police officer costing 100,000 to 125,000. I mean, that's going to affect the school aid positions as well. I mean, that we have partnerships with the school with. You know,
Yeah,
we're
Craig,
going to.
it is such a big number. I've never seen a 1-year jump that rivals that kind of number, which is again why I'm struggling with some of the explanation and why we've gone back and forth a couple of times.
I just wanted to comment that we need to keep in mind that the same attorney firm handles both the county and the Bedford Township. So I'm not saying, I'm saying it's going to be difficult to have our attorney review this based on the fact that his client, he's got, both of them are his clients.
Hey, Dave, on a different note, assessing, we can decrease their conferences by $1,800.
Say it is the big
Okay.
number. What do we need to do? We gonna cut officers?
Craig, I think before we even discuss it, we need to find out for sure. I mean, then we're gonna have to discuss it. I just think for us to try to talk about 25,000 versus 250,000, it's a bigger discussion. I think we wait to find out the facts, get them to a board meeting. I'll try getting them there. I'll try getting somebody there Tuesday. You know, if Masonic or Levis can't be there, maybe Malone will come. You know, but somebody's gonna have to come to explain this. Maybe Chief Deputy Polly, you know, he might be able to come and explain it as well. Somebody's gonna come and represent and explain it. I'll get on the horn tomorrow and get it worked out. Okay, anybody else have anything else? Do we want to kind of reiterate some of our cuts we have? Dave, do you have kind of a total number for us? Where were we at total number before we started today?
About the bottom line,
Just the cuts we've made, yeah.
right now, we have expenditures of $4,507,000, okay? You're gonna cut the 3 positions, assessing, treasurer, maintenance. I do need to know what position in assessing are you going to cut? Because there's different salary levels, different benefit levels, so I need to know that.
Okay, I'm not
Okay.
gonna say it on camera right now, okay?
Okay, that's fine. Park, we're gonna get rid of the unemployment. We're gonna reduce engineering fees and take community ed back down. Labor union, that's gonna be reduced. Engineering fees, I don't believe that's gonna be reduced at all. Am I correct on that?
I don't see why not. You don't have any projects that you're gonna, that you can, you know, put down on paper that you're gonna do. You can't just throw, what'd I say, $100 and some thousand in there for engineering without having anything to back it up.
I'll get us some more information about the engineering. Keep going, Dave.
Well, that's the end of the reductions that have been,
And the assessing cut I just told you? For conferences?
yes,
Okay.
$1,800.
Dave, did you get the one for the, you said labor for union, but did you get, or did you mean legal union with dropping it from 15 to 5?
Yes. Yes, labor union,
Okay,
bringing
so
it down to
so the legal
$5,000.
fees for labor.
Right. So that's all that I have.
Okay, so where were we at money-wise cuts before tonight? Do you know? Was it still the
Before
490,000? Before tonight?
There's 4 million,
No. How much money had we cut out of the budget before tonight?
oh,
Because of 2
I would
meetings.
have to go back and look at the
Okay, because 2
look at
meetings
the
ago,
write-ups. I can't tell you off the top of my head.
you sent Trudy and I an email. We were at 493,000 2 meetings ago.
So you want what we originally started with?
Yeah, where we're at now, where we were at with cuts before tonight started.
Okay,
Because I think tonight we cut about 300,000 out. So my point is if we were still at 493, we're at 800. Which
okay.
You know what I mean?
Yes, I know what you mean, sir. Yes.
Well, could you give us an updated number tomorrow at some time if you have time
Yes.
to update the board where
Yes,
we're
I
at?
will.
And then I will contact the sheriff's department to get them to come to our Tuesday's meeting. We'll add it to the agenda to have them explain the situation. And then we can discuss it further at that. But I don't know how we want to handle it. If it is 250,000, yeah, Craig, you're right. We need to talk about whether or not we can handle that for the future, or if we're going to have to cut a couple positions. I don't know. So we'll have to talk about it at that point. I mean, that would get into, obviously, Ms. Tinneberry's been talking about services to the township. I would hate to see us cut services to the township, and police would be one of the top on our list, I think. So. Anybody else have anything? If not, we'll go to comments from the public. I think we've done about all we can do. I think we've done a very good job. I'll look at engineering fees. Anybody else have anything? We'll go to comments from the public. George, go to comments from the public, please. We'll give everybody, about a minute to get called in. I know we're behind about 30 seconds on Buckeye here.
Can I just make a comment while we're waiting?
Yeah.
Well, what? Oh. I've been thinking about, making these cuts, and as we were talking about the different departments, and I just want to say I'm amazed that the clerk's department can get by with 3 full-time employees. I think that, they're the hardest working team in any township, and so I wanted to congratulate people not wanting to take away anybody from the clerk. That's it.
Okay, go ahead and state your name and address.
Okay, I've got Nancy talking on the TV here. I'd like to hear the whole meeting. My
ahead,
name is
Mr.
Gail
Comment.
Kane. My name is Gail Kane, 1056 West Temperance. Guess what, guys? The sky has fallen. What those before you saved you've blown in the last 4 short years. And the last time I called in, Mr. Peroni implied that I was not truthful. I have FOIA proof that members of the supervisor's department initiated the roundabout, and the grant money can be returned and the project can be canceled, saving over $100,000 instead of taking people's jobs. As far as the staff, let's cancel the 2% raises. Maintenance is already thin, and those are men who are taking care of their families. Let's remove and don't hire any temps or seasonal staff, but I know that'll take care of cutting babysitters and friends and family. Let's remove all but the top 2 in the assessing department, and let's take the deputy supervisor and drop him down to an administrative assistant. It seems that is the need for the supervisor's department. If we can take his responsibility of attending all of those committee meetings during the daytime hours where he's out of the office, and the supervisor then has to go into the assessing department to pull in staff from there to help him handle his office, we could take care of all of that. So let's just do that. It would save an awful lot of money, and it would really put that position in true light. let's remember what the statutory obligations are of this township. We need the treasurer, and her name is said Jandasek, Krista Jandasek. Don't mispronounce her name. That's disrespectful. They need to be paying the property taxes, and we need the assessors. So maybe the top three can stay, because we need to be out there, and we can do it now to assess those properties. So I thank you for that, but yeah, your job's not done. You're not cutting where it needs to be, so don't say you've done a good job.
Thank you for your comments. Have a good night. And for the
I
record,
will.
assessing does not do Dale's job. For the record. Go ahead with your comments. State your name and address. Go ahead with your comments. Just state your name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know I was on. In the assessing side of things, they can't keep up with the reappraisal needs now. How are they going to go to perform in the future in trying to do all the reassessments and keeping up to date? The state may well come in. You really don't want that to happen. I'm assuming that if you are furloughing 3 people, that you would have to consider the unemployment costs, because the township will have to pay the unemployment costs. Maintenance department, losing 1 person there, I hope you remember that OSHA requires at least 2 people to be present when certain mechanical projects are being performed. So if one of them is off ill, sick, or on vacation, the other one will just be sitting around. And that's not really very productive. If we lose 1 person in the maintenance department, how are they going to keep up with the cemeteries and the parks and the mowing and the maintenance and that? Are you going to consider maybe we'll just close the parks, which would be terrible, but you have to also keep the cemeteries up? In the treasurer's department, what I heard was the 2 employees are essentially paid by the sewer department. That is not the general fund cost, as I understand it, but maybe it is. So are you really saving anything out of the general fund when you lay off 2 people who are charged to a separate fund? And I guess lastly, you're trying to get one of the maintenance people to retire. I've heard stories, and I heard you tonight, 2 of you say, well, we ought to make him retire. You cannot do that. You're in violation of so many laws, I can hardly list them.
To make him retire, for the record.
Oh, well, I've heard other stories, and I hope they're...
Okay.
Mr. Supervisor, I'm speaking now,
I
so
get it,
just
but
wait a
let's keep
minute.
the facts straight.
Oh, the facts are, I was just bringing it up, and you've just tried to interrupt me.
Go ahead with your comment.
Now, if that is untrue, I heard the treasurer say that. Treasurer just said it a little bit ago. Maybe he ought to retire. So be careful what you do with that, because that is violation of all kinds of laws. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And for the record, Mr. Francis did not say we should ask him to retire. He said, has the discussion been to retire early? So let's...
That's correct.
keep that straight. Do we have any more comments from the public? Okay. And the assessing department does not do my deputies' jobs. We are at meetings. We are extremely busy. We work with the public on a daily basis, and there are times that the office is unmanned, and we ask the assessing department just to take some calls. It'll be for an hour or 2 sometimes, so we can go to a meeting. It's not a burden. It's not a big deal. Sometimes it's 1 message. Sometimes it's a couple. So let's not embellish too much here. So anybody else have any comments they'd like to add? I would just like to say, again, I'm proud of this board. I'm proud of the fact that the last 3 years, we've gotten LED in our township hall, our library, our street lights, saving a huge amount of money. We've gotten controls at the library. We're continuing on this path of getting our costs down. We've negotiated contracts our cost to have our vehicles fixed went from $85 an hour to $65 an hour. We're 30% off parts. This board has worked its tail off the last 3-4 years to really carve down over the past few years to get our budget down low, and now we're making these big cuts. So I think because of the hard work we've done and the way we got this budget done, looking like we're going to save about 800 and some thousand, I think we're going to be okay, unlike a lot of other townships. And we're still going to be able to continue all the services to the public. Snow plowing's not going to stop for residential 127 neighborhoods. We're still going to contract with Mulch King. We're still going to have community cleanup days. We're still going to do all the services that we've done. And I'm proud of the board that we didn't get into the services. So anybody else have anything? Okay, seeing none. Trudy, I don't think we need another budget meeting. I think we'll move forward to the second week in June, you said?
Correct.
Okay, the second week of June to look at approval of the budget. And then I will get answers on the sheriff's department and engineering fees to kind of get a closer figure, and I'll have somebody come to the next township board meeting. If no further comments, you guys have a great night, and we'll see you soon. And Mr. Francis, this is your last meeting.
Aren't you glad?
We've said goodbye for 3 meetings in a row, but this is your last one. So you take care, Paul. We stand adjourned.